In 1873, just 98 days after their first encounter, England and Scotland faced each other again, this time with the Scots visiting London for England's first ever home international. I'm Steve. I've been a massive football fan ever since my granny took me to my first Celtic Rangers game at the age of 5. In that time, I've watched many England Scotland games, and I love the excitement and the passion that comes from both sets of fans. Join me on the journey to examine every international we've ever played against each other. Hi, and welcome back to England vs Scotland, a football journey, episode 2. Let me start today's episode by saying a big thanks to the great website, scottishsporthistory.com, for its wealth of info. Much appreciated. By 1873, after the first international game, football had become increasingly popular. So much so, we read in the Scotsman newspaper the following: "The laws of the association game are exceedingly simple, numbering only 12 against the sum 40 in the rugby code. One of the principal differences consists in the entire prohibition of the use of the hands, except for the goalkeeper, for the protection of his goal, thus making the skillful and always pleasing dribble one of the best points of the game. A goal is scored when it's kicked under the tape, the ball not being allowed to be carried, thrown, or knocked in. Hacking, tripping, holding, or charging an adversary from behind are amongst things forbidden. Such are some of the differences in the two styles of play, and it will readily be admitted that the association game is one which will commend itself to players who dread the harder work of the rugby mode." And before we launch yourself into the international game, let's first look at what was happening in football in 1873. In the FA Cup, Wanderers FC retained the cup, with the rules in a boxing holder-esque way, the winners having a bye all the way to the final. And the final was held on the 29th of March 1873 at Lillie Bridge grounds. These grounds were just to the upper west side of Brompton Cemetery and a stone's throw from present-day Stamford Bridge. This was the last cup final when byes were given. After this, holders would join the competition at the starting round. Lillie Grounds closed in 1888, but not before it saw the first amateur boxing matches, with the cups being provided by the Marquis of Queensberry. It also hosted Middlesex County Cricket Ground, and W.C. Grace played there before the MCC moved to Lords. The site of the ground is now part of Lillie Square housing scheme. 1873 saw the birth of the man who was to unify and change the shape of world football. This was Frenchman Jules Rimet. Moving to Paris, he first became a lawyer, but football was his passion, and in 1897 he formed Red Star, who currently play in the 3rd division of the French league system. He was involved in the founding of FIFA in 1904, and by 1921 he was FIFA president, one of which he would hold until 1954. And he envisaged a global tournament, and in 1930 he saw his dream realised in an inaugural World Cup which was to be held in Uruguay, after Uruguay offered to pay the travel costs of participating teams. The trophy was named after Ramey, and he carried this trophy all the way to Uruguay in his bag. Ramey died in 1956 at the age of 83. Scotland's match against England in London on the 8th of March 1873 was the second genuine international, coming only 98 days following the outstanding popularity of the inaugural game in Glasgow the previous November. As the Scottish FA would not be formed until later that year, the Scotland side was again selected by Queen's Park FC, and Robert Gardner regained the captaincy. He was joined on the train south by teammates J.J. Thompson, William Kerr, William McKinnon, David Witherspoon, Joseph Taylor, as well as Clydesdale's William Gibb and Archibald Ray as umpire. Although Queen's Park had made a healthy profit out of the first international, they only had sufficient money to send 7 players and an umpire to London. They needed 4 locally based recruits to make up the team. An obvious choice was Robert Smith, a Queen's Park foundling member who had moved to London and was now playing for South Norwood. He had played in the November game. 2 more, John Edward Blackburn and Henry Waugh Rennie Taylor, were in the Royal Engineers at Chatham. And the last was Arthur Kinnaird, featuring regularly for Wanderers and the driving force behind the early unofficial internationals of 1870 to 71. It would be his only full cap for Scotland. The grainy photo above of the Scotland team is the oldest known such picture. If the English were also photographed, the image has never surfaced. One intriguing aspect is it shows Kinnaird with a beard, cap, and half-length trousers. There's a common misconception that he always wore long white flannel, but here he is in knee-length knickerbockers. And another curiosity is a thistle badge on Rennie Taylor's shirt, a souvenir from him playing rugby for Scotland the previous year, rather than the lion rampant on the others. And so, at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 8th of March, 1873, at the Oval Cricket Ground in London, England played their first home international in front of a crowd of 3,000 people. The referee was Theodore Lloyd of Crystal Palace FC, and the umpires were Charles William Alcock, Secretary of the English FA, and Archibald Ray, the Secretary of the Scottish Selection Committee. And so, to the teams. England lined up with 9 changes to the previous game just 3 months earlier. They lined up in a 2-2-6 formation, and they wore white jerseys with the English arms in black on the left breast. And the England team, Alexander Morton, goalkeeper, Crystal Palace; E. Harwood Greenhall, fly kick, Notts County FC; Leonard S. Howell, fullback, Wanderers FC and Old Wickhamists AFC; Alfred George Goodwin, halfback, Royal Engineers FC; R. Walpole S. Vidal, halfback, Old Westminsters AFC and Oxford University FC; Pelham G. Bundonot, forward, Royal Engineers FC; Charles J. Chainery, Crystal Palace FC, forward; William E. Clegg, Wednesday FC, forward; Alexander B. Bonsour, Wanderers FC, forward; G. Hubert H. Heron, forward, Uxbridge FC, Wanderers FC and Swifts FC; William Kenyon Slaney, Wanderers FC, Old Etonians AFC, forward; The Scotland team also started in a 2-2-6 formation, and they played in blue jerseys with a lion on the left breasts and white knickerbockers and dark stockings. In their team, thusly lined up: Robert Gardner, goalkeeper, Queen's Park FC; William T. Kerr, back, Queen's Park FC; Joseph Taylor, back, Queen's Park FC; William Gibb, Queen's Park FC and Clydesdale FC, a halfback; Robert Smith, a halfback, Queen's Park FC and South Norwood FC; David Wotherspoon, forward, Queen's Park FC; Henry W. Rennie Taylor, forward, Royal Engineers FC; Arthur Kinnaird, forward, Wanderers FC; Johnny Blackburn, forward, Royal Engineers FC; James J. Thompson, forward, Queen's Park FC; William M. McKinnon, forward, Queen's Park FC. The now unknown William Kenyon Slaney holds the distinction in international football as its first ever goal scorer. No sooner had the game started than England raced into a 2-goal lead, thanks to William Kenyon Slaney's shot in the opening minute, and then a second from Alexander Bonsour, which was deflected past the visiting goalkeeper, Robert Gardner. At that stage, it looked as though Scotland were going to be outclassed, but the visitors rallied, and by the time 20 minutes were on the clock, they had drawn level. Firstly, Henry Rennie Taylor scored to finish off a brilliant dribble by Arthur Kinnaird, and then William Gibb got the equaliser. But the revival was not to last, and England deservedly went ahead as Kenyon Slaney again scored with a left foot shot, although Gardner kept the English at bay with a succession of fine saves. He could do nothing to prevent goal number 4, this time from Channel's Chenery. England deservedly won the game 4-2. One of the curiosities about this game was that after each goal, the teams changed sides. The English FA were delighted. Around 3,000 spectators at Kennington Oval produced receipts of £106 and 1 shilling, which equates to 2,121 paid admission at a shilling each, with ladies and some guests admitted free. The FA was left with a handsome profit of £73, 8 shilling and 6 pence. Not bad considering their total annual income in the late 1860s was around £4. And after the game, the sportsmanship shown by each country to each other was evident, and we read in the Daily Mail on the Monday the 10th of March 1873, after the match, the Scotch team were entertained to dinner by their opponents in Freemasons Tavern, Great Queen Street. And that was the second ever international, with the scores showing England with 1 win and 1 draw. The next match would again take place in Glasgow 364 days later, on Saturday the 7th of March 1874. And join me for that episode 3 of England v Scotland, A Football Journey. I've been Steve, and until next time, bye bye.